This video is on how to analyze the story, "Thank You, Ma'am." This type of writing requires you to find evidence to support what you want to say. Then you have to interpret what the evidence means. This is a professional kind of writing for school. It doesn't matter if you liked the story or not. It doesn't matter if you can retell the story. What matters is that you answer the question the right way and support it with the right evidence. So here's an example analysis question you might see. Write an essay describing how a character's point of view changes during the story. Use evidence from the story to support your answer. So if we're going to answer a question like that, you should look and see what literary or school-type terms do you see in the writing prompt. So if you look over that, what's something you might see in a classroom that a teacher would ask you about? The two things that stand out to me are characters and point of view. These are the kinds of terms I mean here. In other writing prompts, you might see other literary terms, such as it might ask you about what the main idea is. As we look these over, we might see it ask about the setting of a story. It might ask you, is there symbolism in the story? What genre the story is? Or if you see a thing called bias, or any of these other terms could show up in the kind of literary analysis questions you might see. So back to our writing prompt. In this story, there are really only two main characters. There's Roger the boy and Mrs. Luella Bates Washington Jones the woman. We ask, which one of these are we going to write about? So to decide which one, we can look at the writing prompt, and it asks, how does a character's point of view changes? If you know the story, you understand that the point of view of Roger changes more than the point of view of Mrs. Jones. So that helps us identify and answer that Roger's the one we want to focus on. So we have the character of Roger and his point of view and how it changes. Roger's the better character to write about. Next, you have to think of your main answer to the question. It's also called a controlling statement or a thesis statement. This is going to be, how does Roger's point of view change? So given that, we can answer in a couple of different ways. We could say Roger's point of view changes as he changes from a thief to trying to be trustworthy. We could say that his point of view changes as he comes to respect Mrs. Jones. We could say his point of view changes as he matures and takes responsibility for his actions. Let's work out an answer. It's always good to reword your question into your answer. So during the story, Roger's point of view changes as he tries to be a more trustworthy person due to the kindness of Mrs. Jones. It refers to Roger, his point of view, and how it changes. We have our main answer, and now we can support it. So next, a graphic organizer can help us. The T-chart is an easy graphic organizer you can make on your own when you're trying to answer questions like this. This is sort of the pre-writing part of it. So here's a T-chart. We write quotes from the text on the left. These are the parts of the story that support our main answer. Then across from them, we put what the quote means. We have to make inferences about the quotes. If you're saying, how do you know what it means? Looking up inferences is something that happens in another video. So there's our main answer. We can see the T part of the T-chart. We have our main answer up top, and we can work on putting the evidence on the left and the inferences on the right. And this will form the basis for the rough draft of our essay. Let's look at 3 examples of pieces of evidence that support how Roger's point of view changes during the story. In the first paragraph of the story, Roger ran up behind her and tried to snatch her purse. You'll notice I quote a part of the story and I tell what part of the story it's from. Then, on the other side of the T-chart, I can make inferences and I can analyze it, saying things like, Roger must be a desperate person to try and snatch her purse. His point of view is that stealing, which is untrustworthy, is okay. So that tells me what the evidence means and how it goes back to the main idea. Let's look up another piece of evidence. We're looking for things that show Roger's point of view and how it might try to change from the first part where he was an untrustworthy person. Later in the story, Mrs. Jones has dragged Roger into her apartment and he has a chance to escape. It says the door was open. He could make a dash for it down the hall. He could run, but he does not. So there's a piece of evidence from the story. Then to see what it means, I could have to think and say, well, what about Roger's point of view does this show? This is one key place where Roger's point of view changes. He's still scared after being caught because he thinks of running. However, he begins to act with more honesty by staying. So I had the quote, but also what it means. A third and final piece of evidence is Mrs. Jones leaves her purse out. Roger sees this, but sits where she can watch him. The text says he did not trust the woman not to trust him. And he did not want to be mistrusted now. So there's a key part of it. From this, we can see that Roger's point of view has changed very much. He does not think it's okay to steal from Mrs. Jones. He wants Mrs. Jones to trust him, and he is acting responsibly now. We take Roger's actions and the quote from the story, and we refer it back to what his point of view is in that inference and analysis part. So we have 3 pieces so far. We can put them all on one big page with our main answer on the top and each of the parts. The first quote, second quote, and third quote. And then we have our analysis and our inferences on the right. We can see it as one big page. And from this big page, we can make our introduction paragraph, our first body paragraph, our second body paragraph, and our third body paragraph. Each part of the T-chart can be turned into a paragraph without changing too much. For the conclusion paragraph, there's certain strategies we can always use. We can restate your main idea, summarize the points you have made, refer to the bigger ideas, and make a clear ending. You could write a lot of different things, but here's an example. This story shows that being poor can force people to make bad decisions. Being kind, like Mrs. Jones, helps people recover from their mistakes. My evidence shows that Roger's point of view has changed during the story. He has stopped trying to be a thief and started trying to be a better person. This shows we can all be better people. That's one possible example of how you could make a conclusion paragraph. Together with the paragraphs from the T-chart, we have a pretty full essay. There's many parts to a good essay, and we can't go over them all in this video, but we'll try to learn them part by part. This has been How to Analyze Thank You, Ma'am. I hope from reading this you have a good sense of how to form a T-chart and look for evidence to answer the one question we looked at in the video. Thanks. Have a good one.